Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now. I'm Greg Christ, along with Mr. Frank Fear. Frank, welcome to the show. And I think, Frank, we have another dandy show tonight, as they say. And we've got a great guest on, a gentleman I had on the courtside show. I think he said about 2 years ago, which was awesome. I haven't forgotten that. Wonderful guest, great story. And very, very interesting. I know Mountaineer fans will love hearing from Mr. John Holifield. It's going to be fun to talk to him. Can't wait for that. In the meantime, we've got, you mentioned you're in Florida. I am currently in Radford, Virginia. I'm up here with my sister who's moving down to Nashville. So we're up here helping her take care of a few things. And got the news today that, actually yesterday, that the coach at Radford, Darius Nichols, former Mountaineer player, is moving on to LaSalle University. So they just heard that news last night. So Mountaineer bases get touched no matter where you're at. And of course, we always like to talk about some other things going on in Mountaineer world as far as our teams are concerned. One would be the men's basketball team. And I'm done talking about that. Just kidding. Tough day for the Mountaineer basketball team. We were talking before the show. They did the thing today that has haunted them the last month or so, and that is started off with a fury, and then just the second half just disappeared. Could not score. Went long spells without scoring points. Gave up about an 18-2 run there at one point. So just very disappointing end to the tournament for the Mountaineers.
That's for sure. When you think about Colorado, they had a very rough year. No question about it. Finished last in the league, only won 3 games. Mountaineers beat them up in Boulder, over in Boulder. But, it was, as we were talking before the show, it was a tale of two cities. The Mountaineers got off really good start, sharing the ball well, multiple players scoring, and then the brakes went on after it was 27. What was it? I've got it right here, 27-14, and then they just had trouble scoring, and it just was very difficult to see. And in the end, Colorado, give them a lot of credit. They played really well and hard, and now they're going on to play the number 1 seed, the Houston Cougars.
Yep. Yeah, but you can't feel too horrible about the Mountaineer basketball team. I mean, I think you look back at the season as a whole and the whole body of work that they put in. They beat some really good teams. They did lose some games they probably shouldn't have, today being one of them. But they won some big games, beat some really, really good basketball teams. And at full strength, we're a pretty good team. And I think they just with the lack of depth that they have, and a second scorer to go to, other than Javon Smalls, it just wore them down as the season progressed. And it's hard to, it's hard on any level, but especially on the major college level, to play basketball games with 7 players. It's just hard to do. And pretty much that's what DeVries has been doing, this last 3/4 of the season, and it's caught up with them. But I don't think we can be too disappointed. I think if you look at last year, where the program has come from since last year, it takes more than a year to build a program. If you're going to build it, you got to build it. You don't just come in and it's built. And his definitely wasn't, as he had to start from scratch. And I can't be too disappointed in what's transpired. I mean, looks like they're going to make the NCAA tournament. If anybody would have told us that this time last year, that next year we'll be in the NCAA tournament, I think most people would have laughed. And so I can't be too disappointed in what's transpired.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess the way I see it, Greg, is certainly I agree with everything you said. And I think that your comment of not being too disappointed may have to really be cashed in if the Mountaineers don't make the tournament. I mean, it really depends how the mid-majors do in the tournaments leading up to Selection Sunday. West Virginia had a chance today to get to the 20 mark in wins. First time in 2019-20, they didn't do it. So now they're 19-13, probably went from an 8 or 9 seed to maybe a 12-13 seed, and could get bumped. It really depends. And if that's the case, then it'll be the NIT. So we just have to keep our fingers crossed and our eyes glued to the TV screen on Sunday for the CBS selection show, and just hope that the Mountaineers get in.
Yep, hope so. And like I said, a win today would have probably solidified it. But now it's a little iffy. Not real sure. Like you said, depends on those mid majors. You hope that the you hope that the favorites win those things out. The conference championship is won by the conference champion. That way you don't have any still in any at-large bids there. So you got to hope for that, and hopefully it works out that way. Baseball team, they continue to rock and roll. We won another big one. I think they mercy ruled them in the game with a grand slam home run. 15-2, I believe, was the final score. So the baseball team continues to roll along.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting, Greg, is, and I'm really surprised by this, both West Virginia and Oklahoma State at one time were in the top 25. Both have dropped out now. And so there are no Big 12 teams in the baseball top 25. No surprise, it's dominated by the SEC and the ACC. But it really comes down to now, with the Mountaineers being 13-1, to see how they do down in Stillwater. 3 games, 2-night games, 7 p.m. on Friday and Saturday, both games on ESPN Plus. And then the Sunday game, I think it starts at 2 again on ESPN Plus. Still, the Oklahoma State Cowboys are 9-7. They played some really good teams. They lost this week to Dallas Baptist, a team that a lot of people haven't heard of, but they have a good baseball team. They are in the top 25. So let's, but just hope. I mean, the numbers are great. I mean, we got a number of players hitting over 300. I mean, Skylar King is at 426. Kresser is at 404. Sam White, those are familiar names, high 300s. We've got some great pitching, but we've been playing Power 5 or below teams. And now we get a chance to step up in the conference. Weekend games, conference, out-of-conference games during the weekday. And we'll just see. If we could take 2 out of 3 in Stillwater, I think most Mountaineer fans would be pleased.
Yep, yeah, I think so. And it's going to be fun to see how they do and respond in the Big 12. Again, playing some of these called lesser teams, but the Power 5 or below teams, and it's going to be fun to see how they respond and how they play against some of the upper echelon teams in the Big 12. Looking forward to that. Hard to believe no Big 12 teams are ranked, but again, it is what it is, and West Virginia could probably go 13-1 over the next 14 games and still not be ranked. But that's a Mountaineer fan yelling and screaming. So anyway, you got to win. That's the key.
That's right. Hey, Greg, I've got some comments on the simulcast from the Voice of College Football, and there's about basketball. And Mark Parsons says foul trouble and no offense killed them. That's a headline. And he does think they're going to sneak into the NCAA tournament. And he's right. I mean, I follow the mid-majors and have for about 10 years. And I'm just shocked. The weakness of the bubble teams. And Mark is saying bubble teams are weak this year. So that's Mark Parsons from Nashville. And and he's also saying on basketball, press reports are saying Indiana University is highly interested in DeVries as head coach.
Yeah.
So we're just going to have to hope. Really? I haven't seen it. Wow.
Yeah, we were talking about the possibility of him going to Iowa, and then all of a sudden you see on the ticker that Indiana is pushing for him. So we'll just have to wait and see. We hope beyond hope that doesn't happen. But it happens. So let's hope it doesn't. I think
that's right.
He's going to have things headed in the right direction pretty quickly. And let's just hope that he stays with us. I hope he does. You mentioned back to baseball, people not knowing Dallas Baptist. I used to work for the West Virginia Miners as official scorer, and every year we had numerous players from Dallas Baptist, and they were always really, really good players. We used to get a lot of players from Dallas Baptist, and good baseball program. So yeah, I happen to be familiar with those guys. The women's basketball team. Did okay in the Big 12 tournament. Thought they had a chance there to pull off the win over TCU. Couldn't quite get it done, but they'll be in the NCAA tournament, and they had been playing really, really well, and they played pretty well against TCU. They just couldn't quite get over the hump. TCU is a really good basketball team, women's basketball team. So hopefully the women can get it righted and roll into the NCAA tournament, get a few wins there.
Oh, I think you're absolutely correct. TCU was the best team in the conference this year on the women's side. I was very impressed with their defense and with their plays. They've got I think they have a chance to make a run in the tournament. And before I get back, I want to go back to men's basketball just for a second, because we have another comment here from WVU fan 13. And he said, Fran said it correctly on the broadcast, Fran Fashola. I'll tell you what, those two guys are the best broadcasters.
They do good. Yeah.
Oh my God, Fran Fashola, he's so fantastic. And John Chiambi is a great play-by-play guy. But WVU fan 13 said, Fran said it correctly on the broadcast. Small has to be less selfish. It's not his fault we lost, but when no one else is hitting, he's got to become the Kobe role. And that's absolutely correct. And when he did, he was hitting threes.
Yeah. Oh, we're screaming, shoot the ball, shoot the ball, shoot the ball. I mean, I said this, you take your chances with him shooting maybe not a great shot over some of the other guys having a really good shot. I'd rather have him taking the tough shot, because he's capable of making them. And again, it just I think shows their lack of that second scoring option. It makes it really tough on him. And I understand. I mean, I'm sure he feels like he don't want to be just jacking up shots from everywhere every time. But at the same time, when he's hitting like he was today, he needs to shoot the ball, and he is a little bit unselfish and maybe too much, Yeah. But he's got to shoot it. Well, enough of this gibberish. Let's get on to our guests that we've been looking so forward to. I think as we go into the intro, I think we have a little video to start off the guest appearance, and I think Darren should be ready to roll with that. So we'll get on the video. Oh, hang on just a second. All righty. And like I said, I had him on my show before, Frank, and I know, this is when I started mentioning this part of what we usually say, and that is, it's amazing what a lot of these Mountaineers have accomplished since they left WVU, and this guy is no exception. I mean, the resume, if you look, and I'm sure you have, and done some research, absolutely amazing.
No, I mean, John is, when we think about football players, sort of the general rule is that very early in life, they have a huge spotlight on them, and they perform, and then we don't hear much about them afterwards. And I think if anything that we've done over the last year or so with this show, at least when it comes to West Virginia, every single one, they've really distinguished themselves in a variety of fields and in leadership positions, and in John's case, in a variety of sectors, and are leading edge thinkers, movers. Many of them have been given very difficult assignments in industry and the nonprofit sector and the public sector, and they've stepped up. And every single one, I know John, having talked with him, you can't separate that from the experiences they had at West Virginia and Morgantown. And so we're just so pleased to have him. And we're going to play this video because John can introduce himself. And he does.
That's right. Yeah.
For Mountaineers like John Holifield, while they don't spend a lot of time here in Morgantown, playing for the old Gold and Blue has an impact that lasts a lifetime.
My name is Jonathan Holifield. I was a Mountaineer football player from 1983 to 1987 and running back. I actually got to West Virginia in an interesting route. A friend of mine actually played high school football with a Mountaineer, Eddie Hughes, and I didn't have a place to go. And through a relationship, said, hey, West Virginia is looking at running backs, and they really want to give folks a shot. So I sent film down, and they invited me as a walk-on. And sight unseen, told my mother I'm going to West Virginia University. That's it. I mean, it wasn't even a debate. And had not been further east of Detroit than Cedar Point to that time. So sight unseen, Greyhound bus, January 5th, 1983, and it's been a wonderful exposure and experience ever since. You know, it's interesting now. I watched the game with my wife, who's also a Mountaineer, and quite frankly, I cannot believe I used to play the game at that level. And the physicality of the game. Looking back, and I'm at my mid-40s now, you're like, wow. I used to think like that. I used to compete like that. And, and today you're like, man, what was I thinking? Or, but that's who you were. And that's who you are really at your core.
10 points behind as the second half began, West Virginia rode the arm of quarterback Tony Rita and the running of John Holifield and the rest of a competent backfield.
That's what I look at. I look at the physicality of the game and think, man, when it was my turn, I competed hard during my turn.
Holifield had another 100-yard afternoon, and the Mountaineers pulled away in the final 30 minutes for one of their best performances of the season.
I've been fortunate to have a wonderful career with wide-ranging exposures from an athlete to a professional athlete, as a lawyer, as an economic developer, as an executive in the not-for-profit world. And I want to aggregate, if you will, all of those experiences to help others achieve the same kind of or greater success than I've been able to achieve. I love West Virginia University. It's where I was made. I was made in Romulus, Michigan, Morgantown, West Virginia. And love the university, love my teammates. Let's go Mountaineers.
Awesome. That sure brings back memories watching that. Don, welcome to the show.
Oh, it is an honor to join you. Thank you very much for the gracious introduction. Thank you for inviting me to chat with you. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. I'll tell you what, love those uniforms too. Those were the best ever, and loved watching you play.
I agree.
And compete. Yeah. Good looking uniforms. Compete. You talked about that. Compete. You did, and you're a fantastic running back, and always so much fun to watch. And did a wonderful job as a Mountaineer. Before we get started here, though, you mentioned you wanted to take a moment just to reflect and mention a few folks before we move on.
Absolutely. It was an honor to join you and reflecting on my journey, particularly to West Virginia University. I reconceived the running back room in 1983 when I arrived. And I was a bit moved that we've lost 4 of our teammates since that time. Rodney Jeter from Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, King Harvey from Pulaski County, Virginia, Tommy Gray, Somerville, New Jersey, and John Gay, Monroeville, PA. These were friends, they were competitors, and thank you for allowing me to acknowledge them. And at that time, they played an important role in my life and my development. They were friends, they were competitors, and I wanted to honor them with a mention today. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. All great players, great Mountaineers, and King Harvey. You mentioned it's ironic. Come down yesterday to Pulaski County and saw a sign had his name on it.
Wow.
I don't remember what all the sign was about, but saw that and kind of ironic that that occurred. But yep, absolutely, good folks. Everybody that watches our show, most everybody, are always interested in the coach-player relationship and Coach Nehlen especially. As he is in his golden years now, a lot of people like to hear what it was like to play for Coach Don Nehlen. What that meant to you?
It was an honor. My journey a little bit different from Romulus, Michigan, outside of Detroit. not a lot of players from Michigan on the team. I had no real affinity or understanding of Ohio and Pennsylvania and West Virginia football. So it's all new to me. But Coach Nehlen had been at Michigan prior to joining the Mountaineer staff as well. So I think he had some appreciation from where I was coming as a walk-on, and I certainly appreciated him providing an opportunity. And that's what he did. The key moment with Coach Nehlen, two key moments. During spring ball 1983, you guys are my age and a little older, so you all remember spring ball. It was brutal. It was brutal. So brutal, if you survived all 20 practices, you got a T-shirt. I hit for 20. I'm not sure I ever got a T-shirt, but a lot of guys did. And the most brutal part of spring ball was goal line scrimmage. The number 2 offense versus the number 1 defense, number 1 offense versus the number 2 defense. I was coming in and you know, it was crazy. The defense was going nuts, guys, and fired up as goal line day and such and such. It was just crazy, and it's all new to me. And when the second team offense ran against the first team, my coach had tipped me off. Coach Paul Crisuli said, stay close to coach. He wants to get a look at you. I had done okay as a walk-on on scout team and given a good look and that sort of thing. So I'm kind of lingering behind Coach Nehlen. And he, you know, other players from that era can tell you about the goal line scrimmage. It was just brutal, right? And the first team offense didn't score on the second team defense. So it was our turn to go against the first team. And when the running back was ready to go in the huddle, he pulled him aside and said, I want my man Holifield. Oh, my. Oh, boy. This is it. This is my moment. It's it. And first play, I believe, gave me the ball. I scored. Goal line scrimmage against the first team defense. That turned the tide. Defense was on its heels. Second and third down, I didn't get the ball. Fourth down, I got the ball again. Bounced off the 3-yard line, ran for the angle. Tim Agee, Anthony Daniels, and Mike Scott, whom we also lost, all coming at me. I closed my eyes and I leaped in the air and I scored. And the offense went crazy. I'm a walk-on, right? I think I earned my scholarship that day. And later, this is the spring and in the fall during practice. Coach Nehlen pulled me aside and said, Johnny, he called me Johnny. My family calls me Johnny. He said, Johnny, we got your scholarship. It's like, all right, well, let's get this thing on the road. So, yeah, Coach Nehlen was, I think Coach probably should get even more credit in this way. He figured it out in a sustainable way. Carlin, Bowden, great coaches, did their thing for a minute. Coach Nehlen sustained it pretty competitively for 20 years. He was able to find a way, Mountaineer way, that a small state, less than 2 million population, no big urban areas, surrounded by big states, Kentucky, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, all of those states with 2 to 6 times as much population, and an in-state rival in Marshall, down to the southern part of the state, what's our path? What's the path for a program like that? Coach Nehlen figured it out. He recruited a type of guy. Didn't get a lot of blue chippers, but a type of guy who played the game with something to prove and a chip on his shoulder. Sometimes we ran out of guys and we were overwhelmed by teams that had more guys. But for the most part, it was a nationally competitive program, and he figured out the Mountaineer way in a sustainable way. And my 2 cents is, I'm not sure there's any other way for us. I think we have one path, and that's the kind of guy, and he's a gritty guy, he's a competitor, and he plays with something to prove always.
Yeah. Yep. I think, yeah, you couldn't have said that better. That's exactly right. And I agree. I think the fact that he was able to, sustain that success over a 20-year period, something to be said for that. And yeah, he definitely did it. And I said, you look back at the Mountaineer teams when he was there and you guys played, it was, it was an era when when you played West Virginia, you knew it was going to be a hard-fought, physical game no matter what. Whether you won or not, it was going to be physical, and they were going to know they played the game. And I think that's what Frank and I talked about. It's kind of what we need to get back to. We need to get back there again. And I think hopefully with the new staff in place, hopefully that's where we're heading. And I think it's spot on. Yeah, we got to get those type of people in here and play that kind of football.
Coach, briefly, a friend of a former teammate, Gary Mullen, Blue Mullen, wide receiver, number 1.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He is famous for saying, and he used a little more colorful language that I won't use, but you can lose, but you can't get chomped.
Right. Yeah.
You can't. And that we may have kind of lost some of that vigor,
Yeah.
Yeah, you can lose, but you cannot get chunked by anybody.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I fully understand. You had a lot of great games during your career, but again, our viewers like to hear about specifics. So tell us about some of the games, big moments you remember as you played your years out at West Virginia.
The first college football game I've ever attended, I scored a touchdown. So I had never remember, I came from Romulus. We lost every game my senior year. We were horrible and had no offers. So I had never even gone to a college football game. And opening day, 1983, Ohio University, first time at Mountaineer Field. Do you all remember cup fights?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I thought it was the most insane thing I'd ever seen. I've been told about it, from other players. I'm on the sideline looking up at the student section, and these are thick plastic cups, just at least a couple of thousand, just flying. I've never seen anything like it. And I said, I'm in a different place, boy. But I did score a touchdown that game to open my college career, and that was a memorable moment. My sophomore year against Pitt. Pitt had probably 7 NFL players on defense, and we ended up beating them, I think, 28-10, 28-14. I scored a couple of touchdowns. Willie Drury was a heck of a punt returner, and wide receivers scored a couple, and Gary had a pretty good game, and the defense played well. That's a game I'll remember as well. In terms of total yards, my junior year, pretty good game against Louisville. 2 or 3 touchdowns, maybe 170, 180 yards or something like that. In Virginia Tech, speaking of Radford, in Blacksburg, we came up short, had a pretty good game there as well against a tough Virginia Tech team that may have been the coach's first or second year there who really turned them around. Forget his name. You may know who I'm talking about. So, yeah. Yes, that's exactly right. But as much as the special games, practices and the camaraderie, the unique moment of being at Morgantown and at West Virginia University in the 1980s, it was a unique experience. I talked to friends, and when I got to the NFL, I'd meet guys and other guys and so forth, and we talk about college and so forth, and I kind of tell them a few of our legendary stories, and it wasn't like that for their players. And I mean, we had personalities on the team that were all over the place. Big Jack and Joswiak and Anthony Daniels and Blue Mullen, and we just had a team full of characters, and we bonded well. I do, as you saw in the clip, I acknowledge 2 places where I was made: Romulus, Michigan, and Morgantown, West Virginia, and they are always a part of my heart.
Frank, you want to jump in and talk with John here for a few minutes? Don't want to leave you hanging out there. I know you're enjoying listening, but
I'm enjoying it completely. And in fact, what I want to say first is just to relay to John a comment from one of our regular viewers, Timothy Green, and he says, "Thank you for picking West Virginia. You made a difference." And he said, "Thank you also for the great stories. You sound so down to earth, and I honestly love listening to you."
Oh, boy. Well, please express my appreciation and gratitude as well. It's genuine. I was looking forward to this, Frank. You set it up so well.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's, one of the things you just threw in, and it just shows you your own dedication and also skills. You played on a very bad high school team, you admitted that, came to West Virginia as a walk-on, earned a scholarship, and then you're playing for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I just think that's so important, I think, for the audience to understand. And what I'd like to do in terms of a question, you shared with Greg and me a statement, or we shouldn't call it a statement. It was a commentary of 6 pages that you've written that really reflects the thoughts of so many of the Mountaineer alums that we've had on the show in terms of what you call the Mountaineer way, which makes so much sense. And you talked about it a bit, but I'd like you to amplify on that, and also really interested in your comment. In life, usually there are many ways to get wherever you want to go, many options to solve almost anything. But you said it's the only way, and Greg and I agree with you. Could you expand on that?
Absolutely. How about this? You have some background in the state of Michigan, Frank, right?
That's right.
You were probably in Michigan when the bad boys, Detroit Pistons, were coming through, right?
That's right.
Detroit, as a team in a city, had one way. Isaiah Thomas, the leader of that team, who was Magic Johnson's best friend, he could have continued to be Magic Johnson's best friend with no championships. He could have continued to be a good old boy in the NBA network and Michael Jordan's friend and everyone's friend, and would have retired with no championships. Detroit is not LA. Detroit is not Boston. It's not even Chicago. Detroit had one way to the championship, and they did it twice. And that was through a way of playing, from Jordan rules to physical basketball. They took the only path that was available. I believe similarly, West Virginia might be the most demographically and geographically challenged big-time program in the whole nation. We have, I believe, one way, and it's the type of guy. I think, I hope, and I really have confidence. I think he's going to do great. I think Rich gets it. If you think you can come into West Virginia and just recruit and coach, nope. We're not, what has this song go? We're not the fortunate one. We're not the fortunate one. We're not Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, they have multiple paths. We have one. And I think it's the guy. Let me give you an example of when I got hip to particularly Pennsylvania, some New Jersey, and Ohio football. Michigan high school football wasn't nearly as big as it is in those states. And those guys, we would play against guys they grew up with. Now, our guys were not all Americans. They probably, most of them didn't go to the NFL. But they had the kind of commitment, and again, I'll clean it up for the podcast purposes. You know, XYZ, I've known him since we were 9 years old. Yes, I know he's a first rounder. I know he's an All-American. I know he's all of that. But he will not kick my behind all day today. That's not going to happen. And they played like that. Again, our guys weren't, our defensive, offensive line, and a lot of they were not going to the NFL. But we played a lot of guys who were Sunday guys, and we beat them. We lost, of course, as well. But we beat a lot of Sunday guys. Side note, since I have the microphone, a cautionary tale for us is University of Pittsburgh, a program that lost its way. Mm-hmm. There is no reason for Pitt not to be better than what they are. Mm-hmm. But once you lose your way, it's hard to get it back. My hope, my belief really, is that Rich Rodriguez is the right man at the right time to restore with his innovations, but the core of the Mountaineer way.
Mm-hmm. Boy, that's well stated, Greg, isn't it?
I feel like I'm ready to play.
Let's go. Hey, Coach. If you got something for a 60-year-old running back, I'm your man. I'm not doing one more play. One more.
Yeah. I was just getting ready to say, if I could get up out of this chair, I'd feel like playing. I could get up out of the chair, right?
Yeah. And, you know, I think if Rich Rod was here, I listened to his, I know Greg did, his news conference this week. And as a new coach, I'm always looking at, what's the philosophy here? And what is he going to say? And it always comes out, even if it's never framed, this is my philosophy. But he was asked a question, and I wrote it down. You're putting together a new program. You've got all kinds of choices to make. And Rich Rod said this. He said, the filter is very simple. If it doesn't help us win, then I don't do it. If it helps us win, I do it. And then he followed up with something that I thought was great. And I love people when they self-critique. And he said, coaches spend too much time together in the coaches' room, figuring out what the play should be, what the game plan should be, what plays we should run in certain circumstances. He said, execution of the play is more important than the selection of the play. Because even if you have the right play, and you don't execute it well, then why bother? And he also said, I want running backs that are going to get the ball when the play is to the sidelines. They don't run out of bounds. They go full speed ahead. I think those 3 lines from Rich Rod, I think, are consistent with what you're talking about in labeling as the Mountaineer way. Is that fair?
It is very fair. And you talked about Mountaineers who are able to translate perhaps their spirit earned and demonstrated on the field in their lives and careers. Similarly, Rich, it's a little different with NIL and transfer portal, but the principle stays the same. He will win not based on the plays he calls, but even deeper under execution is the kind of guys he attracts. It's kind of like a business. You win in people selection. Same thing. And I think he knows the kind of players he needs to win at West Virginia University. And he has something to sell in terms of the atmosphere, the infrastructure, the amenities, the path through the Big 12. Side note, I think, I had told a lot of my friends coming off 2023 that I expected West Virginia to have the season that essentially Arizona State had. I thought that was going to be West Virginia. And, it didn't work out and no looking back. But I think there's a path for West Virginia through the Big 12, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So I think that we might be entering into an exciting era of competitive, hard-nosed football. We can lose, but we can't get chunked.
There you go. You mentioned NIL and the transfer portal, and I know when I had you on my show a couple of years ago, we talked about some ideas about the portal and NIL. What your thoughts were? You had a unique perspective about how West Virginia could go about staying competitive in the NIL and the portal world, and I think our viewers be interested in hearing that perspective.
Well, I think the program should take on a kind of guerrilla warfare, not comparing football to warfare, but you get the metaphor I'm talking about, but a real guerrilla approach and translate unproductive assets, i.e. people like me and just regular Mountaineers who love the program, love the institution as well. How can we be helpful other than writing a check? That's easy. But I think they have the potential to build a national network of people who care and who go to all kinds of high school games and know all kinds of players and so forth, many of whom are not spotlight players, the kind that we have a better chance to attract. But we all should be scouts. And when we send a recommendation to whatever email address he designates, he should someone, not him, but someone on the staff should acknowledge it and thank them for doing that and take a look at the player. Who knows what will happen? But we need more eyes on more guys and more talent from everywhere. If all we're trying to do is compete up here with the resource-rich program, I don't know if we can do that. But there are a lot of players, and players will want to play. Yeah, NIL will be determinative. We all know that. But there's only 11 starters on offense and 11 on defense. how long do you want to sit? We have a big stage. We have a path to the championship. Guys will want to take that. And building out a national network of eyes and ears, looking for talent, recommending talent. They're not going to take everybody. That's not the point. But there are more people who are sending potential into the program, and the program acknowledges receipt and then does what it does. I think could help strengthen the network of loyal Mountaineers.
Sounds like a great idea, Frank. What do you think?
Oh boy, I'll tell you again, that connects too to what Rich Rod had to say this week. He said all of our assistant coaches are involved in recruiting. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a recruiting. And he said, that's so important because these players are going to come to play for them. And so certainly we coordinate everything, but it is that network. And, I've heard this before, and I bet you resonate with this. There's something about Morgantown. I mean, there really is. It's not for everybody, but with you, John, when you got here, you knew this was the place. And if you don't reach out, network with people and give them an opportunity to experience it, for those where it's the right place. You talked about Joswiak, coming from New Jersey. He knew it was the right place. And so you're spot on.
To that point about West Virginia, it's interesting. The older I get, and my friends, former teammates and friends from undergrad, from time to time, we go back and so forth. And the point about West Virginia, and particularly Morgantown, particularly from those of us who are from the Midwest, Ohio or Pennsylvania or wherever, not from West Virginia, man, that topography just hits different.
Yeah.
It stays with you. It is a different kind of place, geographically, topography, the mountains, the beauty. It's an asset that if young men have an opportunity to experience it and see what a future might be visually there, could be an enhancer, an enticer, if you will. I can tell you, 40 years after I first stepped foot on campus, and a lot of my era guys as well, when we go back, we take it in. It's a special place. Most of us come from urban areas and no topography and this and that, it hits different and it stays with you.
Amen.
I love the mountains of West Virginia. Heck, when my family used to come drive in from Michigan to Detroit area to games, they couldn't wait it start getting better as you get into Pennsylvania. When I say better, it's less flat. Pennsylvania got some hills and so forth. But boy, when they hit West Virginia, they loved it. They loved coming to games or going to games. They loved driving through West Virginia. It's an asset that I'm sure Rich and his team and Ren and his team will figure out how to better package and promote, because I can tell you, it hits differently.
Yeah. There's another comment here. Mark Parsons, John.
Yes.
He's an assistant producer on this program. He's the one that said, you guys got to get John on the show. And at any rate, he's got a comment here on the Voice of College Football Network, because for those of you who don't know, we simulcast on New River Network and also the Voice of College Football. And Mark says, WVU has always, for the most part, successful recruiting players that can be coached up. Coach Nehlen had the knack for that, for identifying players and then coaching them up. And Rich Rodriguez comes from the same mold.
Boom, boom. I think that's the underlying point that we're talking about. He may have put a finer point on it, but that's what we're talking about. If we think you can, again, that's what I mean. If you think you just come into West Virginia and you recruit and coach, just like you do at this school, you do the same. No. If you don't get it, and what Mark Parsons is talking about is part of the it. You gotta get it. Rich gets it. I believe Ren gets it. No shade against some past folks, but I'm not sure they ever got it. I wonder if they thought they could just recruit and coach.
Yeah.
That's not the answer.
That's right.
Well, Frank, I know one thing. If I'm Rich or Ren, I know who my marketing guy is going to be. I know who the ambassador is going to be out there. Oh, gosh.
That's right.
What a recruiting guy.
It is. And you know what? And you and I have talked about this, Craig. One of the things that a variety of things separate John from a lot of folks, but he thinks like a CEO because he has been a CEO. And if you look at the graphic we put up there, got his law degree at the University of Cincinnati, was a prosecuting attorney, and then was in Buffalo, New York with a conservancy as CEO, then essentially the CEO of Urban League. What I like about that, not only is the leadership, but you're crossing boundaries in different constituencies, different subject matter, but the same skills. And then you were in, with the White House, with two different administrations, the Obama and the first Trump administration, with the historically Black colleges and universities. And you've been so involved in economic development. It's your passion. And for those of you, I hope you can see the graphic. I should have made it bigger. He's written a book that you can get on Amazon that really talk about, President Trump talks about, and so did President Biden, getting things done. Well, John's dedicated to getting. Thank you, Darren, for doing that. And that is a great book. And also you have a podcast, Moving the Needle. And the small print there is getting shit done. Right?
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. You said something, Frank, that let's pull that a little bit. You're very gracious. Thank you. Absolutely. But that's one of my areas of deep interest is in what I call the competitor's way, or competitive intelligence. And the point is, if we believe that competitiveness was a form of intelligence, we nurture it more intentionally in athletes. So many of us are distinguished from the next student in terms of college football because of our competitiveness. But after the game is over, many of us leave the spirit on the field, and it doesn't necessarily serve us for the rest of our lives and careers. I continue to work on and think about and share perspective about how to convert competitive intelligence, the ability to determine what needs to be done on the field, then exerting your will for success. How do you turn that spirit, that ethic, into the same thing in life? Wherever I am, whatever game I'm competing in, how do I determine how fast that game is being played and then set my case for success? I don't care where I'm going. I am going to figure out how to be successful in this role. And I think that I don't have any doubt that was born of my athletic experience and was fortunate to have people throughout my life, my family, my uncles, my mom, cousins, that would offer enough to continuously think about not leaving perhaps my greatest asset, my competitive spirit, my competitive intelligence, not leave it on the field, but take it with me in whatever I did.
Let that settle in, Greg.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, man. That's pretty evident when you look at John's career and the path he's gone down. Amazing accomplishments. You have to have, as he says it, you have to have it in order to be able to accomplish these things. And man, like I said, what a resume and accomplishments are there for sure. Very, very, very interesting and enlightening.
And it reflects my interest as a human being. You mentioned, Frank, all kinds of, well, those are the things I was interested in. So I've done the things that I've been interested in. And for particularly young people, whatever that thing is, that spirit you have, that will you have, that competitive intelligence you have, don't just use it on the field or on the diamond or on the track or on the court. That's a trait. Those are traits that are not only useful, they really are essential for the long runway after your playing days are over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Greg, just
follow. I have to ask this.
I'm just going to say.
I have to ask this. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, following up what you said, I tell you, if this show is watched by Rich Rod or anybody with the program, invite John to come in and talk with the players about because what you've done, and it's so credible. You've done it yourself, so it's not your lecture. You're not lecturing people. No. It's just you're using yourself really as an example, but doing it in a humble way. That what got you to where you are now, sitting in that chair, don't ever lose that. 20, 30 years down the line, just sustain it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm telling you, Frank, it's an asset that these athletes have, not just football players, but people who show up and compete. Yep. And that's a thing that I believe should be more intentionally cultivated, not just for the field, but for a trait, a characteristic to inform the rest of your life.
Absolutely. And I have to ask this, being a huge fan, I just, not to be political in any sort of way, what was Barack Obama like?
Actually, thank you. I meant to address that. I met President Obama, Barack Obama, and visited his White House on a couple of occasions around technology and forgotten Americans and inclusion and those kinds of things that I care about. But I didn't work for him. I worked for President Trump in the first Trump administration. That was a wonderful experience as well. And something that the work that we did, I'm extremely proud of.
Awesome. Man, I'll tell you what, it just, and Frank, you can attest to this, and we've talked about it many times, just amazing what folks like John have accomplished. And we talk about it over and over, how when we have these former Mountaineers on, how blown away we are by the accomplishments. And like you said, the humbleness and the love for West Virginia and the place, the coaches, Morgantown, et cetera, it just blows you away. And it's so exciting to, like I said, you listen to John talk, you're ready to get out there and play that game. No wonder he's been a successful CEO. No question about that.
Absolutely, no question about it. And John, you and I had an exchange. I'll tell you the rest of the story, and it relates to Michigan. And I think I may have mentioned this to you, Greg, in the past. But I was part of a group that brought John U. Bacon, who is well known, writing books about the University of Michigan, mostly football, but other things too, to make a luncheon speech down in Naples, Florida. And so I got to know John a bit. And that during those years, this is going back about 10, 15 years, Michigan had, I wouldn't say lost its, well, he would say had lost its way. And there's a concept in Michigan football that's called the Michigan Man. And it's aspirational, that we are the University of Michigan and we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And the thinking was that had been lost. And the story that John talked about, he wrote about this in a book, is that a Big Ten, all Big Ten quarterback from years earlier called the athletic office and introduced himself and asked for tickets. And the person on the other end of the line said, what's that name again? And had to write it down. And then the said, just give me a second. And they didn't recognize him. I won't mention the name, but anybody who followed football in the 70s knew his name because he was on TV almost every week, and he was playing for Michigan. And the story I was telling John was he was making an address of probably about 350 people there, all of whom were U of M graduates, at least most of them, and donors, big-time donors. We're talking about Naples, Michigan. And so we've got some money there if anybody's been down there. And I said to myself, I wonder what the audience is going to say and do, because he really went after the U of M administration. And he took a take no prisoners approach. He got through, and within 2 seconds, the audience got up and gave him a standing ovation. Wow. Because they knew how important that was, just like the Mountaineer way. I think if you gave that same speech in front of a crowd of Mountaineers, I think they'd do the same thing. I think they'd get up and give you a standing ovation.
I know the kind of thing you speak because Romulus is right between Ann Arbor and Detroit, right at the airport is in Romulus. So I grew up a Michigan fan, if you will. Allow me to tell one story about Bo Schembechler. After the 1984 Blue Bonnet Bowl, I had a pretty good game. I scored a touchdown, maybe 80 yards or whatever. I was a pretty good player. I guess, when the announcers called my name, they must have said from Romulus, Michigan. Okay. And Bo must have been watching the game, probably the only game on. He and Nehlen were, good coach Nehlen were good friends, blah, blah, blah. Well, a few days after the game, my coach, Paul Krasula, says, just want you to know that Bo asked, where did you get that Holifield kid? And the point I got from it was not that Michigan was ever going to recruit me. That's not the point. But that a player was essentially next door and he had no idea about. And that was unacceptable. You can't have players in your backyard that you don't know about. Again, and that made me feel good that at least now he's heard of me in West Virginia. Again, I'm not making more of it that they would have recruited me or anything like that. But that was heartwarming that he asked, where'd you get the Holifield kid? So, yeah, I'll take that one.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Man, I'll tell you what, this has been a blast. And I just looked at my watch and I thought we had plenty of time left. We're out of time. It's flew by. And I know anytime we have guests, the scale of John, the hour flies by awfully quickly, doesn't it, Frank? And I tell you what, this has been a pleasure to listen to you. And I always say this, but I truly mean it this time. We've got to have John back again, especially Frank. Maybe Frank, when we're feeling a little bit downtrodden and we need to pick me up. Let's get John back on here and pep us up a little bit because I'm fired up now, ready to play some football.
And he means it this time. The last time he said it, he didn't mean it. But
No,
this time,
no, you misunderstood.
right.
I wasn't talking about you the last time. But I did have you back. I was talking about every guest I have always said, man, we'd like to get you back on here sometime. Well, I truly, truly mean it this time.
truly mean it this time. Absolutely.
I just dug myself a hole, haven't I?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I apologize. I want all of you back.
No. Before we go, Frank, want to give you one on your Michigan man thing. In Ohio, they often do specials and so forth. It's about the Michigan Ohio State rivalry and so forth. I think it was Archie Griffin who said, not to me, but in the interview about Bo and Woody, friends and that sort of thing, that Woody would told them that if you're in trouble and you need help and you can't find a Buckeye, find a Michigan man, because they're just like us.
How about that?
Wow.
We have our own kind of thing that we should own and promote.
Mm-hmm.
It has real value.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Wow. I tell you what, again, John, thank you so much for joining us. Man, what a good time I had, and Frank, I'm sure you feel the same way. And I really do mean it. We'd love to have you back and get some more.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure.
Pep talks.
I was looking forward to it. I probably was a little too hyped about it, but just to talk that Mountaineer football thing and Rich is back, and it's a different vibe this time than it was in the short past, if you will. So it was a pleasure. Thank you. Yeah, I know. I'm digging myself a hole too.
We're getting this hole together here.
Yeah, that's right.
Again, thank you so much, John. We appreciate you more than you know. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Frank, you want to let's go. I'll tell you what. You got me fired up, man. I'm ready to go play. I tell you what.
Well, Greg, there is, as you know, there is a thirsting for this.
Absolutely.
There is a wave of interest in having that Mountaineer way being accentuated with exclamation points, not just among the football alums, and they talk about it. We've heard it week after week, but also among the fans. So to have John, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, and again, you listen to him talk and him say basically that competitive nature on the field. He was a great football player, translated right into his personal life and career, and you can see why. I mean, all you have to do is listen to him, and you can see instantly why it's a success, and just makes you proud and happy to know people like this and to know that they're Mountaineers and how they feel about WVU, Morgantown, West Virginia. It just makes all us Mountaineers proud. Really, it makes us feel good. So tickled to death. That was a ton of fun. You want to mention next week, and then we'll sign off for the night.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'll do that. Before I do that, I shortchanged our women's basketball team. If I could say a few words about
go ahead.
The Mountaineer women. And I wanted to before I get to that, I'll do another one. A couple of comments here that I'm reading off my handheld. I enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you.
I mean, they're legit, and they can make a run. They get hot, get playing like they did at certain times this year. They can make a run, and that'll be exciting to watch. I'm looking forward to it. So it's something to check out on Sunday. Absolutely.
Yeah, and JJ is the Javon Small of the women's team. As she goes, go the Mountaineers. But you asked about next week, and boy, I'll tell you, we keep on rolling them out. Al Johnson is going to be with us for the third time. Actually, I don't think anybody's been with us 3 times. But for those who don't know Al was the strength and conditioning coach at West Virginia for 13 years. He also played the same role at Ohio State, at Northwestern, at East Tennessee State with the Baltimore Orioles in the pros. He is in the strength and conditioning coaches Hall of Fame, and he was the coach and conditioning coach of the year in 2002. So when it comes to that really important position, none better than Al Johnson. And I'm laughing because I'll tell you what, let's just dedicate ourselves that this time will be better than the second time, because the second time he was on, there was an electrical outage.
Yeah.
And God bless him, Greg, you know that. He just sat there for about a half an hour.
Yeah, waited on us. Yeah.
And then when we got back online, there he was.
Yep, he was there waiting. Yeah, and I can't wait for the viewers who missed that to hear him talk about his Major League Baseball experience. And I think you probably remember which one I'm talking about. I won't let the cat out of the bag right now, but wait and hear. People will like that story. That'd be a good one.
Right. That's right.
All right, Frank, another great show. Fantastic guest tonight. Truly enjoyed listening to him and so interested in his life. And people should go on and research him a little bit and read some of the accomplishments. Pretty fascinating guy, brilliant guy. So a great time tonight. So we appreciate John for joining us. We appreciate all you folks for tuning in. And we look forward to coming to you again next week on the Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now. Hopefully another great show for Frank Fear. I am Greg Christ and Darren McGuffin behind the scenes. Good night, everybody.